Welcome, everyone, to Couch Potato Diary, Part 2. Happy Wednesday. My name is Peter Klein. Thank you very much for tuning in today. This episode is going to be all about the lists as we look at the changes in the pound for pound after UFC 305, changes in the CFL Power Rankings after another wild week, and we continue the NFL previews looking at players that could break out this season. And then at the end, it is another mock draft. So a lot coming up on the show today. Thank you all so much for tuning in. All right, UFC 305 is behind us, and a big win for Dricus Du Plessis means some changes to the UFC Pound-For-Pound rankings. So, as we do after every UFC pay-per-view, let's look at the list and see how the Pound-For-Pound has changed. Coming in at number 10, this is all on the men's side. Coming in at number 10, it is Alex Volkanovski. Yes, it hasn't been a great run for him lately, but I still think when a couple of your biggest losses come against the one of the pound-for-pound kings, you still deserve to be on the list, and Volkanovski absolutely still deserves to be there. Coming in at number 9, I still have Leon Edwards on this list as someone who, again, a couple of big wins over a guy who was at the time a pound-for-pound king in Kamaru Usman. You don't just lose this spot right away. So I do think that Leon Edwards deserves to be on this list, and that's why he still is. At number 8, it's Jon Jones. I have moved him down basically every time due to inactivity. Like, it is becoming comical to the point of frustrating how this whole thing has played out with Jon Jones. And so I think very deservedly we have bumped Jon Jones down this list, coming in at number 8. At 7, it is Belal Muhammad, so he moves up a spot. He was new to the rankings after the last one with a convincing win over Leon Edwards. And so because of Jon Jones's inactivity, Belal Muhammad jumps up one more spot. Coming in at number 6, it is Tom Aspinall. The interim heavyweight champion is ahead of Jon Jones because he just keeps whooping that ass and continues to move his way up these rankings. At 5, it is Ilia Topuria. I think this kid is an absolute dynamo, and again, he beats Volkanovski to get onto this list, and Volkanovski was a top pound-for-pound guy at that time, and so Topuria just gains that level, coming off of one of the biggest wins of his career, and now is setting up for a gigantic fight against Max Holloway coming up a little bit later on this year. Coming in at number 4, it is Sean O'Malley. He has a fight coming up, we think, with Merab Dvalishvili, although Merab apparently got cut in training, posted it on social media, and Dana White was super stoked about it. But I would imagine that fight is still coming up, and O'Malley, one of the top fighters in this sport. There's no question about that right now. At number 3, Dricus Du Plessis. So he moves up from 4 to 3, getting onto the podium right now with a win over Israel Adesanya, the middleweight champion. He has beat 3 former champions in a row to get to this spot, and now there's talks of him moving up to 205 pounds and fighting up there. Some interesting fights await for Dricus Du Plessis. One of them could be against our number 2 fighter, Alex Pereira. He has saved many a big card for the Ultimate Fighting Championship this year. Doesn't necessarily have the biggest test coming up, but still 2-division champion. Recently, I know I have a former 2-division champion down at the bottom there, but 2-division champion very recently with wins over a number of guys who have been threatening for the pound for pound. So he has to be up there. And then at number 1, it still has to be Islam Makhachev. A couple of wins over Volkanovski, who was at the time at the time of one of them, I had him at pound for pound number 1. At the time of the second, I had him pound for pound number 2. So you beat that guy, you kind of just get to stay up here at the top for a really long time. So we will see how long that reign at the top lasts. But for now, it absolutely is, I think, deserving. And Islam Makhachev, your pound for pound great, but Dricus Du Plessis moving his way up into the top 3. That is going to do it for the UFC Pound for Pound rankings. Let's shift gears now and talk some football as the CFL week gets going again tomorrow. So let's see where everyone stacks up. It's more lists. It's CFL Power Rankings. We get ready for another week in the Canadian Football League, so it's time to see where everyone stacks up. It is the CFL Power Rankings, heading into some crazy how week 12. Coming in at number 9, it's the Hamilton Tiger Cats. They are so clearly the worst team in the Canadian Football League right now. They have a weird situation at quarterback. They can't stop anything on the defensive side of things. This is just an unmitigated disaster out in Hamilton this season. And now that things have kind of cleared up in the Alberta capital, all of a sudden it just becomes so clear that Hamilton's at 9. At 8, this one might be just some sour grapes over a missed bet, but the Calgary Stampeders. I am, at least for now, done being fooled by this team. I think that this is a team that when they put it all together can be a very good team. But A, I need to see them do it at home. B, I need to see them do it consistently. It is all over the place. And they had a chance to really, I think, make a bit of a statement against Ottawa. And minute and a half to go, they had the football, couldn't get a first down on offense and couldn't get a stop on defense. So the kicking game was great. But aside from that, like it's way too inconsistent for me to keep having this team any higher. At 7, yeah, it's Edmonton. Yes, they've beaten the hell out of some not great teams. 100% will grant you that. They actually have a better point differential than the Stampeders. They are the number 1 scoring team in the league now. And again, there is some favorable scheduling in there. We'll see what happens with Trey Ford injury status this week, but the way they are playing right now, I think Edmonton has to be above Calgary. At 6, it is Saskatchewan. They have really hit a speed wobble here after a surprising first month of the season. Another disappointing loss for Saskatchewan where they missed 4 field goals from Lawther, but still, I didn't like the play calling. They do have Trevor Harris back. They make a signing of Tate on the offensive line, so we'll see how that goes, but still not one of the upper teams, and just kind of hanging on in that middle at 6. At 5, it's the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. A couple of real convincing wins to remind everyone how good this team can be. And I think that they are really starting to hit their stride. And even with a really, really bad start to the season, they now have, I think, a pretty good shot of winning this division. And again, remember, that defense is good. At 4, it's the BC Lions. I keep waiting for this defense to be a little bit better, and it keeps not. Obviously, the Nathan Rourke thing did not go the way that they would have wanted it to at the in his debut last week. I still think he will be fine. This offense is way too good for it to not be, and I think the defense will get at least a couple of things figured out. At 3, it is Ottawa. They move into the top 3 with that win over Calgary. Jeremiah Masoli played well. Drew Brown, at least getting some starter reps at the beginning part of practice this week. And defensively, that front 7 is really good. The secondary, I still think, is vulnerable, but they can put some pressure on quarterbacks and some pressure on teams and really put you in some tough situations out there. So just a well-rounded team. At 2, it's Toronto. There is a lot going on around this team right now for obvious reasons with Chad Kelly. That was not the welcome back press conference that I wanted to see. There was no, I think, legitimate remorse or anything like that. It's lovely that he can read off prepared statements and remember them and all of that. But as far as a football standpoint goes, again, the dude's very good and is going to be a real problem with a defense that I think is just scratching the surface on how good they can be. And at number 1, it's been this way all season long. They continue to stay there. It is the Montreal Alouettes. This defense is playing out of its mind. Offensively, Alexander maybe gets the benefit of the doubt on a review call where he probably absolutely stepped out of bounds, but were they not going to score anyway? This is the most complete team in the league. They add Austin Mack to an already ridiculous receiver room. The fact that Rambo, when everyone's healthy, could be their 4th best receiver is absurd. And then Fletcher's a weapon. It's a complete team. And Jason Moss is coaching the hell out of that team. So it is a really, really good team. And that's why they are in at number 1. From 3 downs to 4, let's continue our NFL preview as we look at players who could break out this season in the NFL. All right, it is time to continue our preview for the NFL season as we look ahead to the 2024-2025 campaign. And this one, we are starting to get a bit more into the projection aspect of things. The first couple, looking back at last year, the part one today was looking a little bit at like just a bit more matter of factly, like who are the best teams, who are the best players. Now let's project some stuff. So players who have a chance to really, who I think will really break out this season. At 5, Patrick Queen. I said this is the best free agent signing this offseason. The Pittsburgh Steelers, I think, get a real one in Patrick Queen and help them build a defense that if TJ Watt gets hurt, can still sustain a little bit. I think this is going to be a year that everyone recognizes who Patrick Queen really is. At 4, it's J.K. Dobbins. He is going to be the most talented running back on a run-heavy team, probably, with the LA Chargers. I hope he doesn't get a workhorse workload or anything like that. But injuries have really denied us of getting to see what J.K. Dobbins can do. And I understand, assuming he's going to be the guy who he was at Ohio State is asking a lot of someone whose lower body has just been decimated from injuries. But I still think there is going to be a very talented running back there. And I think that this is a guy, there's obviously health concerns if you're drafting him in fantasy, but from a real life NFL standpoint, he is going to be someone who I think has a real chance of breaking out in 2024. Another running back just ahead of him, Tyjae Spears. I think it is insane that people think Tony Pollard is going to be the number one running back in Tennessee. Spears is infinitely better than Tony Pollard is. And I think he is really poised to break out and show everyone that he can be a true weapon for the Tennessee Titans. They are not going to be the Derrick Henry run team of the last half decade or so, and that's fine. I think Tyjae Spears is still going to be a guy who is going to put up some really big numbers. And from a fantasy standpoint, this guy could be an absolute standout for fantasy that you could get in the late rounds. So I think opportunity is going to suggest this guy is going to really put it together. At 2, it is Jameson Williams. I have been saying for years that there is an insane amount of talent in this guy. And he breaks off a big play in the NFC title game. And that just kind of solidified, like, yeah, that this guy, I think this guy is going to get it. And I think now having a full training camp, a full season to really unleash things with the Detroit Lions, I think he opens up something in this offense that they just truly haven't really had before. In terms of like his big playability. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best receivers in the league. But Jameson Williams, in terms of like being able to take a top off a defense and all those type of cliches, I think he really will show people that there has been a lot of talent there. And if they can really unlock it in Detroit, it could be a special season for the Lions. And the number one breakout player for 2024-2025 is Christian Watson. Watson is a guy who is like, again, injuries have kind of slowed him up a little bit in the first few years out in Green Bay. But the thought that all those receivers are close in talent might be true for the rest of them. When Christian Watson is healthy, Christian Watson is the guy. And I think he will show this year, again, that this is a player that has such a well-rounded skill set. And I think he will be able to show that. And again, a couple of these are based on health for sure. I mean, all of them are. It's football, right? But this is absolutely a player who I think we see receivers take these jumps year 1 to year 2 and then year 2 to year 3 for sure. I think he is someone who is primed with a good chemistry with his young quarterback and Jordan Love to take a gigantic step forward here in 2024. So those are the players who I think are going to break out. There's a fantasy aspect to that, but let's really dive in now to the fantasy football world. We've been doing it, draft spots 1 through 6. It is now time for mock draft number 7. All right, welcome to another mock draft. For those of you who are new, we, to get ready for the fantasy football season, doing a mock draft from every position in a 12-team league. We are also going to be doing a couple other ones, looking at some different formats a little bit later on. But that is what we're doing. And so wherever you are consuming this, the first 6 of those are up. This one today is mock draft number 7. So it is half point PPR, 15 rounds. Let's get into it. Yes, we are going to do it. Okay, so it starts off, wow. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and now this one is the easiest pick we have had so far. Bijan Robinson is sitting there, so Bijan Robinson is who we will take. I don't think there was, quite frankly, even a close number 2 after that. Following that, a couple of Browns, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jonathan Taylor, Garrett Wilson, Jahmyr Gibbs. Then in the second round, run on running backs with Kyron Williams, Saquon Barkley, Travis Etienne, Puka Nacua, and Chris Olave. So we are back here at 7. We have Marvin Harrison Jr., who is available to us. Also on the board. Oh, sorry. I need to bring that up for you guys. Also, Drake London is available. Davante Adams as our wide receivers. Josh Allen is there at quarterback. We did that yesterday. I didn't love it, and that's probably not something we're going to do. We have Derrick Henry, Devon Achane, Josh Jacobs there as the running backs. And so I just think it's too high for rookie Marvin Harrison. Like, you are baking in exactly 0% of downside with him. And honestly, with Drake London here as well, I don't want Drake London as my wide receiver number 1. Let the team that took Chase or Jefferson have him, and we'll continue to build out that way. I would love to try to play the ADP game and see if Samuel falls to us in the 3rd round. I don't think he will, and I think we'll get very frustrated by that. So there isn't, like, honestly, there isn't really an obvious pick here. This is a spot where I'm not in love with any of these. So I'm going to go Davante Adams. I think Gardner Minshew fits what he is doing well. And if he doesn't, Adams is getting traded to probably a better situation at some point in the year anyway. So we will go Davante Adams in that slot. And like I said, I think Gardner Minshew being the quarterback there is actually good for him. And that is certainly a player that I think has all the talent in the world to go out and get the job done. After us, Marvin Harrison Jr. does go, followed by Achane. Other running backs that went, Pacheco, Jacobs, and Henry. The wide receivers that went were London, Ayuk, Samuel, and then right before us, Mike Evans, Sam Laporta, our first tight end, I believe, off the board, and Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen both go at the quarterback position. So we're here in the 3rd round. Travis Kelce is just there, which I think is an interesting move. As we get into these middle rounds, starting to see, obviously, some different players being available. Travis Kelce here in the 3rd round still feels like a very solid pick to me. I am a little bit worried that there's going to be a little bit of a load management sort of a situation going on with him. Running backs in this ADP area, Rachaad White and James Cook, who I have a great deal of interest in here. Wide receivers, Nico Collins, very good. Jalen Waddle, Stephon Diggs, DJ Moore, Malik Neighbors, DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp. So there's a few receivers who I actually feel pretty comfortable with. And again, a couple of quarterbacks potentially coming off the board in this area. But I'm going to go with Kelce. We haven't gone tight end this high yet. So let's see what we get. And if we could get like one of there's going to be another player that loops back around to us that we're going to feel very comfortable about. So let's go with it here with Travis Kelce as our 3rd round pick. Immediately after us, it goes Collins and Neighbors. Then we have Patrick Mahomes coming off the board. A couple picks later, Lamar Jackson comes off. In between them, it was Jalen Waddle. We have Diggs, Devonta Smith, DJ Moore, and Cooper Kupp. Also, a Rachaad White goes in there. And so again, we're in a spot where there's a couple players actually that I quite like, with DK Metcalf being available. Joe Mixon is a strong pick, but I think DK is a really, really intriguing piece, and if we wanted to go that way, I wouldn't hate it. I do think there is a bit of a running back ledge that is coming still, and so I want to avoid that. So I think James Cook is the way to go. I think he is honestly probably the best weapon that Josh Allen has to work with, so we're going to go James Cook here and see what is left for us. After that, CJ Stroud goes. DK Metcalf, of course, that wasn't going to get back around to us. Joe Mixon, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, David Montgomery, also a couple tight ends in McBride and Andrews coming off of the board. And then immediately before us, it is Tank Dell and Amari Cooper. And so I'm still not going to go quarterback. Anthony Richardson is up there. We're obviously not going Dalton Kincaid at the tight end spot. So we're now back to a wide receiver or a running back. Zay Flowers, I think, is interesting. A year 2 guy with Baltimore. I think that there is some development that he is going to go through. T. Higgins has gone through a lot with the Cincinnati Bengals, and is someone who quite intrigues me on this team. But I do kind of worry about the whole dispute going on there, and just guys who aren't there for the full of training camp worries me in certain instances, and his is one of them. Otherwise, this would be a no-brainer with him as well. Running back like Aaron Jones, I don't know if we need our third running back here with Jones or Swift. And so Zay Flowers, I feel very comfortable with the team that we have, having Flowers as our wide receiver number 2. Lock that in. I feel very good about it. A couple tight ends come off immediately in Kincaid and Kittle. Then it is McLaurin, Richardson, Aaron Jones. Kyle Pitts comes off. Christian Kirk, T. Higgins, DeAndre Smith, Zamir White. That is way too early for Zamir White. Just putting that out there. I'm happy I'm not doing. I'm not in that spot to have to make that pick. And so now we get to the spot where I start to tense up a little bit, because between now and the next time that we pick, I think 3 quarterbacks can come off the board, and I don't want to play in the next group of QBs. So it comes down to Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, or Dak Prescott. I think Joe Burrow could have just a phenomenal season. I love what Arizona has done with bringing Kyler Murray a few weapons, but I think Joe Burrow is still a bit above Kyler. So we are going to go with Joe Burrow as our quarterback, lock that position in. This has been, again, right around the time, because after this, Keenan Allen, George Pickens, Ramondre Stevenson, Najee Harris, none of those I feel bad about missing out on. Kyler Murray goes, Xavier Worthy, Evan Ingram, Roma Dunze, Troy Pollard, Rashee Rice, Jalen Reed, and Chris Godwin. So we are up here now in the 7th. And so Dak Prescott would have been available still for us. So maybe we could have waited one more go around. But this one has been an auto pick for me, and I'm going to keep it up here. Raheem Mostert, yes, Devon Achane has all the explosion, and yes, Mostert is on the wrong side of the age curve, but he was the absolute number 1 there last season, and I think he is still going to be a good part of this offense. So Mostert is the click with our running back spot. And now our running back room of Bijan, Cook, and Mostert, I feel great about. Back-to-back quarterbacks after us with Love and Prescott. Then Bowers comes off the board, but we're seeing a bit of a running back run, so I like that we got ahead of that. Chubb, Williams, Moss, and Brooks all come off the board. A couple of the tight ends in Bowers and Ferguson, and a couple of receivers in Ridley and Jalen Addison off of the board. And so now where we are at, wide receiver-wise, there is Hollywood Brown, Ladd McConkey, Deontay Johnson, Keon Coleman, DeAndre Hopkins. And now, if you guys have been watching these, you know it's Christian Watson, Brian Thomas, and Jackson Smith in Jigba. At the running back spot, Jaylen Warren. If he wasn't banged up, that is an auto click for me. But with him being injured, I think that's going to continue to drop, and that price is going to continue to fall to probably an area where we're quite comfortable with, even if he isn't going to be a major factor the first part of the season. But I think this is where we start to load up on that receiver depth. If you are watching the full episode here, you know that I just named Christian Watson as one of my breakout players for the year. So Christian Watson is going to be the guy that I take. But we are hoping to get multiple of Watson, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Brian Robinson, Jamison Williams, and obviously, honestly, after doing the breakout players thing, Tyjae Spears, if we were able to come away with him as well, that would be unbelievable. And so none of those guys came off of the board that we missed. It was Njoku, McConkey, Hollywood Brown, Brock Purdy, Keon Coleman, Caleb Williams, and then Jaylen Warren goes at the beginning of the 9th, followed by DeAndre Hopkins, Austin Eckler, Deontay Johnson, Devin Singletary, and then Brian Robinson. So one of the guys who we had a want for comes off. And at this point, I have been going with Jamison Williams or Jackson Smith in Jigba. I think the more it goes on, I have Jamison Williams ahead of both of them. But I really do think there is a chance for Tyjae Spears to have a really big year this year. And so I'm looking at this now. The teams, the two teams after us, both went wide receiver each of their first 4 picks. And it does kind of seem, there is a bit of balance, but it does kind of seem like teams are more set at wide receiver than running back. So I'm going to take a bit of a gamble here and go Tyjae Spears and hope that Jameson Williams kind of circles back to us on the come around. So we go Tyjae Spears with this pick here, followed by Gus Edwards, Dallas Goedert, tied to a Tagovailoa, sorry. Jackson Smith and Jigba does come off the board, as we kind of thought. Benson's off as well. Brian Thomas, Jaden Daniels, and Jared Goff at the quarterback. TJ Hawkinson and Zeke Elliott. So our gamble paid off, and we are going to get Jameson Williams this middle round. It's kind of how it has looked so far, and honestly, it is exactly how I want it to look right now. I think that these are all, if you're watching on the YouTube video here, Mostert, Watson, Spears, and Williams are all hugely important players in fantasy this year, and guys who I am absolutely targeting and maybe a bit undervalued this year in fantasy football. So here we are, 11th round. There are 5 picks left for us to take. Adonai Mitchell is the number 1 for ADP, followed by Khalil Shakir, Jacoby Myers, and Mike Williams for wide receivers. At running back, Chuba Hubbard, J.K. Dobbins, the 2 that are available right now. Rico Dowdle, also a little bit further on down, and then Jalen Wright. At tight end, there is Cole Kmet, and a quarterback, it's Kirk Cousins, but that's not necessarily the game that we are going to be playing right now. Chuba Hubbard, it's not a player we've ended up with a lot so far, but he is going to be the starting running back for Carolina, and I think that offense is going to be at least passable for part of the season. So Chuba Hubbard as a backup running back here, I have no problem with that depth play. And again, it's a guy who I think is going to be a number 1 on his team. We also could have gone J.K. Dobbins, who was on the breakout player list. I think you absolutely could have done that. Kickers in the 11th and 12th round is a little early for me. So now we are again in this spot where there's no one on the board who I'm jumping for. And so I want to get ahead of the defensive train here. And I've kind of gone back and forth on San Francisco and on the Jets. The more I have kind of gone on, the more I do think the Jets is probably the way to go. So we're going to take a Jets defense. Jalen Wright from the Miami Dolphins was a player who I was hoping might circle back around to us. He goes immediately after. So, that was maybe a bit pie in the sky there. We are still going to wait for kicker for our last spot here. But now, Xavier Legette is the best player available ADP-wise, along with Brandon Cooks and Gabe Davis. Josh Downs up there as well. Matthew Stafford, a quarterback, is available. Kendre Miller, Marshawn Lloyd, Tyler Algier. All running backs are available, along with Antonio Gibson. Again, nothing is super jumping out. Oh, sorry. Just coughed in all of your ears. So maybe, you know what? We have Bijan at the top. Let's just lock in the Atlanta running back situation, and let's just go out and get Tyler Algier with that pick, and just make sure we have a handcuff there to Bijan Robinson. I have no problem making that. Another kicker came off the board. Jalen Polk was someone who I was kind of hoping would circle back around to us, but I'm going to go Ricky Pearsall. The Brandon Ayuk situation continues to be up in the air. Pearsall, I think, is going to have a role in this offense regardless. So Ricky Pearsall is going to be our last skill position pick, and then we're going to get to whatever is left of the kicker position, which there isn't going to be a lot. A lot of kickers have come off of the board so far, and so that's a little annoying. But we're still going to get my guy, Daniel Carlson, with our last selection. And so our team, drafting 7th overall, honestly, I'm liking this squad. Our starting quarterback is Joe Burrow. Our 2 running backs are Bijan Robinson and James Cook. Our receivers, Devontae Adams, Zay Flowers, and if you're a 3 wide receiver league, Christian Watson. Love it. We'll absolutely take that. And then our tight end is Travis Kelce. So for flex, if it's not a 3 wide receiver, it's Watson. If it is, then it's Mostert. And then we have a couple lottery tickets with Spears, Williams, Hubbard, and then a little bit of a safety blanket there with or not a safety blanket, but a safety net there with Algier in the 13th round. And then Ricky Pearsall rounds it all out with our defense, the Jets, and our kicker, Daniel Carlson. So that is going to do it for mock draft number 7 and the show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe wherever you are consuming this. If you're watching, make sure you like it. If you're listening, leave a review. Follow me on social media at Primetime Klein, and I will talk to all of you later. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.